Hi everyone, we're live again. It's Tuesday tea time. Today is June the 11th. I can't believe that the month is almost over. I'm like, oh my God. Once we get to the middle of the month, right, we're pretty much done. For those of you who don't know me, and because we've had so many people join my page here, we have over 450 people following us today. And hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Barbara Moore, and I do a blog post called Catch Your Breath 60. This is my Facebook page. I also am active on Instagram at Catch Your Breath 60, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. My blog is at catchyourbreath60.com. And for those of you who don't know me, I have COPD, and I was diagnosed in 2016 when I had a major exacerbation. And anybody who wants to read about that story can go to my blog, and it's in there called In the Moment. So we had a couple of requests to talk about some topics today, and we had several requests actually come in. But one of the main requests that people are talking about, and what we all talk about with chronic illness, and even those who don't have chronic illness, is anxiety. So today we're going to talk about anxiety and dealing with those damn feelings of anxiety. So like I said, you don't have to be chronically ill to have anxiety. A lot of people have some mental health issues that are threaded through their genes, and we have to deal with those things that we are predisposed to. But anxiety doesn't always have to be a predisposition to mental health. Sometimes anxiety is brought on from things that are in our life, and that things that trigger what is happening to us. And one of the big things that we often suffer from, and oh, there's my son. And so one of the things that we suffer from is shortness of breath. You don't have to be only have COPD to be short of breath. Anybody can suddenly become short of breath. And heart disease is one of those things that will also cause an experience of shortness of breath. They're called dyspnea. And so having anxiety can also cause shortness of breath. And as everybody knows, when we can't breathe, there's not much else to talk about. When you can't breathe, it is the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. And so we get caught up in our illness, on top of not being able to breathe and suffering normal anxiety through the day-to-day operations of what we do, right? I don't want to go to the boss's office. I'm feeling anxious about it. I get heart palpitations. My mind starts telling me really bad things are going to happen. And I'm positive that the boss has called me into his office because it must be a bad thing. And so all of the thoughts that go through my head are always bad thoughts. And this also happens to us as we suffer shortness of breath from things like chronic illness or heart disease, or any fright that we have, or anything that we allow when we allow this anxiety to take over. And one of the methodologies of dealing with anxiety, I actually wanted to talk about a couple today. And we know that I always talk about mindfulness. And mindfulness is really, really good. Anybody who practices mindfulness will tell you, hi Jackie, will tell you that mindfulness is a wonderful thing. The problem with mindfulness is this. If I tell you to be mindful, you'll say, oh yes, okay, I'm going to concentrate on my breathing and I'm going to stay in the moment. But it is a practice that becomes something that you are. And so if you haven't practiced enough at mindfulness, for me to tell you to be mindful means nothing, actually. Because the next question is, well, what is mindfulness and how do I get there? And as I said, this is a practice. It's something that we need to practice on a constant basis and keep bringing our mind back to what the situation is at the very moment. So if we can't do that, and many of us can't do that, we have a hard time convincing our brain that we are stronger and we know more, and we don't have to believe what our brain is telling us. One of the ways that we can get to mindfulness, and it is the ultimate imperfection, is through meditation. And anybody who wants to meditate, I can tell you that there's tons and tons and tons on the internet. One of the places that I go is called Headspace. And it's excellent. It's free, and it gives you an alarm every night, whatever time you set it up for, whether it's the afternoon, the morning, the night, whatever it is. Hi, Heather. How are you today? Thanks for joining us. So meditation will lead to mindfulness, and that will get us to ultimately where we want to go. And when we're talking about mindfulness, we're always talking about talking to ourselves, right? It's very important that we talk to ourselves. But when we're talking to ourselves, we must be talking in positive voices. And this is really, really hard for a lot of us, right? How do we talk positively to ourselves? Because most of the thoughts that come into our mind and most of the things that we allow are negative. And so one of the things that you have to do is shed those negative thoughts. Do not allow negative thoughts. And I've been working very, very hard at this. My son can tell you, actually, I think he's starting to see it. I will not talk negatively about anybody. I will not think negative thoughts. I will not allow them to come into my head. And that's part of my meditation and mindfulness. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about today are two things, actually. And one is called exposure therapy. Hi, Merlin. And exposure therapy is a way of replacing the things that we see and hear and feel with something that is positive. So exposure therapy, what we do is we change the way that we're thinking. We change the thoughts and the images and the sensory feelings that we allow throughout our mind and our body. So we change the images of the pictures when we see a horrible car accident and we react to that. So we change that to something that is that goes through your mind that is negative into something that will go through your mind that is positive. If you watch horror films, if you watch Stephen King, and I never watch horror films, but my daughter gave me a great tip one time because her and my husband just love to watch them. If you watch a horror film and you turn the volume off, there's nothing scary about it. So what you've done is you've eliminated that sensory of hearing and reacting to actually what you're hearing. So one of the ways that we can change the way that we deal with anxiety is through exposure therapy. And I've done this myself, and you can actually do it. So when you're anxious about something, there's two ways to deal with it. We can face it head on, or we can avoid it. Avoidance is no good. We can't live our life avoiding things. Those of us who have COPD or have a chronic illness know that we have given up too much at this point. So one of the issues that I have is getting upstairs, and I think everybody who has a lung disease probably has faced this challenge of stairs. Very shortly after my second exacerbation, when I had my second cardiac arrest, we went with friends to a birthday party. And nobody even thought about me or my oxygen, or nobody, it just wasn't an issue. And we didn't know, but they had the party upstairs. And I looked at the stairs and I was absolutely and totally positive that I could not do them. And so the party was forced to change the venue and to come downstairs, which wasn't as nice a place as it would have been if we went upstairs. Now, I didn't try the stairs. I just looked at them. I got anxious and I knew I couldn't do them. So I had to come to the realization of, am I going to give up this too, because I've given up so much for my illness? And do I give this up too? Or do I face it head on? And we actually decided, because we have 8 stairs coming into our house, and we actually thought maybe we should sell the house so then I will never, ever, ever have to do stairs. But here's the problem with that. Once you give it up and you say, I will never, ever do it again, it's something else that you have eliminated. And I'm tired of eliminating things in my life. So I'm not going to do that anymore. I look at the stairs and I decided that we are going to stay in our home and I am going to master those stairs. And so the way that I handled it was by exposure therapy. And that was, instead of avoiding it and pretending that they didn't exist and that they were my barrier to outside and getting inside, I would face them head on. And so I got my oxygen tank. And every single day I went down the stairs and I came up the stairs. And I went down the stairs and I came up the stairs, and I did it once a day. Then I did it twice a day. Then I did it 3 times a day. And on the 4th day, you know what happened? I went down the stairs and I went outside. And guess what happened? Nothing happened. So this is called exposure therapy. It is done in a very controlled environment. Only you have control over what you can do and what you can't do. And you don't have to do the whole flight of stairs. But baby, what you have to do is get to the first step. And then just think about getting to the next step and getting to the next step. And before you know it, you will have mastered those stairs. And you won't have had to give anything up. So it's absolutely fabulous. This is called exposure therapy. And it's a great way to do it so that you're not being exposed to something that is going to cause you anxiety. Because I can tell you that if I was given this opportunity again today, I would have looked at those stairs and said, I'm going up them. I might not have gotten down and up too many times that night, but I would have gone up. So that's one way, exposure therapy is one way that we can control anxiety. And what that is replacing what we're anxious about with something that is really, really good. We all, or most of us, went to respiratory rehab, and most of us had a learning component to our respiratory rehab, and we went through, or we're taught, cognitive behavioral therapy. One of the greatest tools that we can use in this lifetime. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you to challenge those thoughts. So my second anxiety after the stairs was getting into the car. And Carol Kirker, I don't know if she's on today, I haven't seen if she's on today or not, but Carol said to me, you know, as she was reading my blog posts, she could tell when the fall was coming and winter was approaching because she could hear the anxiety in my voice. And if you go back and you read my blog posts from the fall time, you will hear the anxiety in my voice. I am terrified of the winter. All of my exacerbations really, most of them happened in the winter, and most of it was because it was cold and because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so I gained this phobia about getting from the house to the car. And you can ask my son, like, it was horrendous. I would be like, I can't go, I can't get out of the house, I don't know how I'm going to go to the doctors, I can't go to my sister's, I don't know what I'm going to do, I will not be able to get into that car. And Susan, you were there the last time I was, it happened to me, and I got into the car and I said, you got to call an ambulance because I can't breathe. So some of it was anxiety, some of it was the conditions, and knowing the conditions in which to stay home is not a bad thing, right? That's, you know, it's kind of, you know, using your head. But cognitive behavior challenges you, teaches you to challenge those thoughts that are going through your head. So when you are thinking, oh my God, this has happened to me before, I've been in this place before, the worst thing is going to happen to me. I absolutely know that I'm not going to survive this. And we all know that that's not true. Because those of you who are listening, I can tell you right now, you have been short of breath many, many times before. Anybody who has heart COPD, anybody who lives in this world has suffered anxiety where they have become short of breath before. You're here because you all made it. We all made it past that. And so with cognitive therapy, we challenge our mind to not be able to accept these horrible things that it is telling us is going to happen to us. We say, instead of saying, yes, this is going to happen, we say, why is this going to happen? So, the other day I was talking to my daughter about my grandson going to school, and she said, when he goes to school, he will have to take the bus. And so we let that hang in the air for a few minutes. And I said, he'll get beat up on the bus. And she said, why do you have to say that? Why can't you just say he will have a good time on the bus and he will meet lots of friends? See, so it's the way that you're allowing your mind to get these thoughts through your head. So I am all panicking and going, oh my God, he's going to get beat up on the bus. And she's thinking, he's not getting beat up on the bus. He's going to make friends and everything's going to be fine. And so this is how we allow anxiety to come in and take over our mind and tell us these things. You are a stronger person than that. And you can control what you're thinking in your mind. Instead of allowing your mind to tell you that these horrible, horrible things are going to happen and that you're probably not going to survive it, challenge your mind to say, I will survive this. You have to take control. And most of you have taken control over most of your illness, wellness, chronic illness. Most of you have learned to take control over your life. And it's all in the stories that we're telling ourselves and allowing our mind to say, right? And to tell us these horrible stories that not necessarily they're going to happen. For those of you who saw my personal page last week or have access to my personal Facebook page will know that I had a picture up there of my sister who passed away 8 years ago. It was a very, very tragic thing. My sister was 62 when she passed away, and she had sarcoidosis. So for those of you who know about lung diseases and what they are, sarcoidosis is one of the most horrible things that you could possibly go through. It is a disease that can affect any organ in your body, but it will usually go for the weakest organ. And for us, it's lungs. So she suffered from sarcoidosis, and it was in her kidney and in her lungs. And she would not tell anybody or allow anybody to help her. So when she was admitted to the hospital, she was unconscious. And the doctor said to her husband, how long has she been in kidney failure? And we were stunned because we didn't know that she was sick. She never allowed anybody into her inner circle, if you will. And she never shared with anybody what was wrong with her or how sick she was, and we had no idea. So I think the moral of this story is this. If you are suffering from anxiety, and most of us have day-to-day anxiety when you're dealing with a chronic illness, we know that we all have anxiety going day to day without a chronic illness. So with it, it's just that much more exacerbated. Each one of us need to find somebody who will help us. We need somebody to be our ally and our right arm. We need to start talking about our anxiety, and it's okay to say, you know what, I'm feeling really anxious today. And I think if you're honest with yourself, you will know that, you can wake up one day out of the blue for no reason at all and have a real bad feeling in your stomach, right? Very often what happens is we carry that around like a brick for the whole day. But if we are able, or if we are lucky enough to have somebody to talk to, then we can talk about it and kind of get it out. So what do you think that this is? And if you don't have anybody to talk to, it really is hard, but you can reason it out in your own mind. Why am I feeling this way? What do you think happened to me? Did I have a bad dream last night? Did I just sleep not well? Is something coming up? Am I looking at something that I'm not actually facing? And once we start talking about it and we get, we can banter back and forth and we can have it out in the air, because the biggest thing, especially when we're feeling anxiety, is keeping it in. So what we're doing when we're keeping anxiety in is we're keeping two secrets. We're keeping the secret that we're not feeling well, and we're keeping the secret of our anxiety, and we're not allowing anybody to share or to help us. I think innately that people want to help us if they can. And you don't have to all of a sudden go out and start telling people all your feelings and everything. But when you're feeling anxious, or when you're feeling like you really can't handle a situation, having somebody to talk to, or at least being able to talk it through in your mind, and asking yourself, well, what is the worst thing that can happen? Most of us know that even though we have COPD or we have lung issues, that we're probably not going to die from them. With the medicines that we have today, we're probably going to die of something else, like maybe COPD related or maybe lung related, but it's not going to be the COPD that's going to kill us. So even if you're having an exacerbation or a shortness of breath, I can tell you from experience, the worst thing that happens is that you pass out, and then they take you to the hospital and they intubate you, and the next couple of days, you're back to normal or whatever, right? So probably you're not going to die from anything that is closely related to shortness of breath. And I know we get anxious about this. I hear you, Christine. These are the things that, I think lots of times throughout the day, when I get up in the morning, I think, what would I do without my husband? What would I do without a caregiver? What would I do if I was on my own? But here's the thing, right? A lot of people are on their own and they manage. They might not manage as well, but guess what? They manage. So challenge yourself to answer these questions. What is the worst that can happen? Well, of course, I guess the worst that can happen is that you would die. Okay, probably that's not going to happen, right? But yes, I get it's very, very scary. I understand. I've been there many, many times, and most of my family have seen me in these situations. I get all upset at Christmas time. I've got to go for visit. I got to go visiting or whatever. I get all upset at Christmas time. There's no point to it. It takes all the joy out of it. And that's the other thing, right? You got to think about when we allow anxiety to take over our mind and to tell us all of these scary stories. Guess what? We're taking all tomorrow's joy for what might happen, we're taking all of today's joy for what might happen tomorrow, and that's not good. Everybody's seen that meme about yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here. Just think about now, and that's a mindfulness thing as well, right? So all of these things are kind of all tied in together, if you will. So I think that the thing that we have to look at the most is getting an ally and really, really concentrating on changing the behaviors that we are used to. We are used to these behaviors. We allow these behaviors to happen. And then what happened in the past will obviously happen in the future unless you change it. And you can change it. So I'm going to do a blog post tomorrow. My blog will be out tomorrow. And in my blog post tomorrow, I'm going to have some exercises and stuff that you can do to help you with anxiety, to help you get from point A to point B. And, you should sit down and just kind of have a look at some of the exercises that are included. It'll be at the bottom of my blog post tomorrow. And you're welcome to go in there and have a look around and see, remember when we were in rest rehab, for those of you who went, we had exercises to do every day, and it might be nice to kind of revisit those, if you will. And I'm also going to talk about mindfulness and meditation, but I want to talk about these other things too, because I think some of these behaviors can really, really help. Everybody talks about mindfulness and meditation, and everybody says, yes, I'm mindful, I meditate and all that crap. But you know what? It's a practice that has to be done over a long, long period of time. And so these things like cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy, exposing somebody very, very slowly to something that they're afraid of allows the anxiety to come away from it, right? And once we do that, remember that that's one other thing that we don't have to give up. Yeah, and it's hard, it's hard for people who are absolutely by themselves. But normally, if you're inclined to ask for help, there's lots of people around that will help you, right? And don't poo-poo people and say, it was when I was in the hospital, and one of the friends said to my kids, what can we do to help? And my son said, oh, nothing, there's nothing you can do. And my daughter said, wait a minute, we need food. We need food really, really bad. And so the moral in our house is anytime somebody's sick, we're providing food, right? Because it was the best thing that could happen. So look for my blog post tomorrow on anxiety and how to deal with those damn feelings. The contest is over, and I am going to have a blog post at the end of the week that will tell you who the winners were and all of the prizes that went out. That cost me a small fortune in freight, but it was well worth it. And those things went in the mail yesterday, so please check your email or your mailboxes for those people that were winners. So I'll have something about that at the end of the week. Please follow me on Pinterest and watch my boards on mindfulness and anxiety, because there's really a lot of treasures in those boards, and there's a lot of information in there on Pinterest at Catch Your Breath 60. Of course, I'm on Facebook. This is my page at Catch Your Breath 60. I'm also at Twitter at Catch Breath 60. And I have a channel on YouTube where I expect to be putting these videos up pretty soon. But I'm still having a problem with getting them up there because Facebook doesn't like it. And of course, my blog at catchyourbreath60.com. And my blog post will be out tomorrow. And I'm always open to new topics that everybody would like. Next week, I would like to talk about some fun things, because we've had some pretty serious topics the last couple of weeks. So let's talk about some fun things, and fun things that we can do for the summer. I mean, one of the best things, my grandson was here last week and we were blowing bubbles. And my husband said to me, look at you, there's your therapy for the day. So, we can do some fun stuff too, right? So get out and blow some bubbles, and hoping that the weather gets better. This is Barbara Moore for Catch Your Breath 60. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is my pleasure to invite everybody to join me, and I really, really enjoy your comments. I do try to answer every single one of them. And for anybody who doesn't get it, please feel free to watch the replay. Barbara Moore for Catch Your Breath 60. Thank you for joining us today.